Back here to Australia, of course, we're in the countdown right now to the show budget of the new federal government. A show budget, I say, because, of course, the money bills have already gone through the parliament. It's all about pretending that they are going to do something about the economy. But as Gleeso mentioned a couple of minutes ago, and we mentioned last night, in the sights of this government are the people who didn't vote for them. The people who returned every single Nationals MP. They are going to be punished, and they are being punished on multifacets everywhere. The day before the election, the decision was made to announce that there will be an EPA, a new essential body that would work just like the Queensland one, where they'd tell you about what tree clearing you can do. Then, of course, there was the great applause coming from the Twitterati while we signed over not just 43% emissions, but 80% renewable energy. The reality of that renewable energy is that it actually has to go somewhere. Where's it going to be built? In Marrickville? No. In Western Sydney? No. In Attila Electric? No. Of course, it's all for the bush. And the way that that works is that you can find a farmer who'll sell off a couple of acres, and then whether the people like it or not, they'll have to cop it. There are plenty of people who will suffer as a result of this in the next little while. And Nick Cater wrote about the size of the stuff that has to be built. And every person advocating for this would not want it in their own suburb. So why does it have to happen in the bush? Reducing emissions by 43% will require the installation of, what about this, 47 megawatt wind turbines every month from now till 2030. 47 megawatt wind turbines every single month from now till 2030. Each one as tall as the Sydney Harbour Bridge. It'll require more than 22,500 watt solar panels to be installed every day for the next 8 years, and 2.4 for every man, woman and child in the country as it stands. New solar farms would cover an area dozens the size of metropolitan Melbourne. Who suffers? The people in the bush.
Ballarat, these farmers are in no rush. Instead, they're in a fight, they say, for their land. A protest against AusNet's plan to run 190 kilometres of transmission lines to Melbourne.
These outrageous 88-metre things are going to denigrate the countryside.
It's proposed they will be greeted by this. A huge solar farm surrounded by a dirt mound. That's why Mudgee local Ken Sutcliffe, the former host of Wide World of Sports, has a dirty look on his face.
Don't put this on the front door to one of the most beautiful, historic and biggest tourist towns in Australia.
You'd nearly destroy the potato industry in this district.
Well, the factory will close because their jobs will go. The factory is relying on us for their production.
People come to this region, for the beautiful scenery, for the landscape, and they don't want to be looking at, 85-metre tall power lines.
Don't bite the hand that feeds you.
Control room, let's go back to the quote. Remember here, 47 megawatt wind turbines every month till 2030 as tall as the Sydney Harbour Bridge, or 22,500 watt solar panels to be installed every single day for the next 8 years. Where's it going to go? In the bush. Not one person who demands that we do all of this stuff will have any change to their lifestyle, but because people in regional Australia, they end up sending Nationals MPs, then they're about to be punished. Another example here about the war on regional Australia. Now, we keep being told that we're about to see in this show budget in a couple of weeks' time some very serious decisions, some real belt tightening.
Delegates, there are no easy choices in uncertain times.
We are trimming spending or reprofiling spending. It will be seen as a series of difficult decisions taken in difficult times.
We're going to have to really put the brakes on some of the spending.
Including trimming spending, beginning to trim some of the spending from wasteful areas.
Improving the fiscal position of the budget.
There's an opportunity to trim spending, to see where we can trim spending.
Making sure that we get rid of the waste that's in the budget.
Our efforts to trim wasteful spending.
And as I've told you before, the single biggest thing that the federal government spends its money on, regardless of whether it's Liberal or Labor, is welfare. The best part of $250 billion every single year. Literally, every 4 years, $1 trillion is what we spend on welfare. It is double health, It is multiple times of defence in any 1 year. But will $1 change from that? No. Apparently, all of this trimming that's going to happen, guess where it'll come? From regional Australia. The deal that was done between the former Deputy Prime Minister and Prime Minister to get to the support for net zero involved an awful lot of things that would help regional Australia. Here's some of them.
They need a fund that actually inspires the new businesses that are going to employ people to start up. That'll be determined by Cabinet as it comes through.
The National secured tax changes for farmers that see carbon credits counted as farm income.
There was a strong view in the room that they wanted averaged over 5 years, so that was done.
Mr Joyce also claims his party demanded that so-called Scope 3 emissions be excluded from any target.
Like accounting for your carbon emissions from coal mining in Australia, then counting it for them again when they burn it in China. It's basically double counting.
So thanks very much for signing up to net zero, but now we'll take all of the money away from regional Australia. That's the reality of what is about to happen. Why? Because you keep voting Nationals. You will be punished for doing so until eventually you vote for a Teal or maybe even the Labor Party. Now, of course, on top of all of this, we keep being told garbage that they're somehow again going to pull in their spending. Now, we've already told you that when it comes to the cuts, the biggest cuts that at this stage are going to be happening is not to the $250 billion in welfare. Instead, no, let's bash the bush because they don't vote for us.
We need to tread a pretty careful path here when it comes to the budget.
Making sure that we deliver a budget that is responsible.
It's a responsible budget. On the budget I hand down will be responsible economic management.
Responsible, fair and reforming.
It won't be flashy. It will be responsible.
In short, our budget will be responsible.
Designed very carefully and very deliberately.
So the lie they're trying to tell you is that they are going to tighten the belts, that they will pull back the overall amount of dollars that we spend in the federal budget. The only problem is there are two people who absolutely know what's inside that budget. One is the passenger, otherwise known as the treasurer, who looks at the bushfire and says, yeah, that'll get worse before it gets better, but do nothing about it when it comes to cost of living, and you know how bad all of that is right now. And then the other person is the finance minister. The finance minister, who is 1/3 of the Mean Girls, sadly, 2 of them still left. Thank you so much, Di Lee, for getting rid of KK. Well, she said this yesterday.
There is an additional spend, but it's modest. We're very confident that that will not add to inflation.
So despite all the bulltish about pulling back on spending, they will spend more than the previous government did in their budget earlier this year. Will the media call them out on it? No, of course not. Why? Because there's nothing to see here. This is exactly the type of media that scandalised everything the former Prime Minister did, but literally tells people that Anthony Albanese at the first opportunity ran towards the floods in Victoria, when in actual fact, he didn't do that. On Saturday, he was at the conference for the Labor Party in New South Wales, a couple of days before they was playing backyard cricket. Yes, for charity. I love you, Fitzy and Whipper. But still, that was the priority. So the media are not invested in actually telling you the truth, that the single biggest cost of the budget is welfare. So we have to do something about that. Can't possibly be done. Apparently, we can trim the spending by going after the deal that was done to get the country to sign to the thing that they all demanded we had to do, which was net zero 2050. So thanks for the deal, but now we'll take away the compensation. And then after all of that, they're still going to spend more money, which means they're not saving anything. This doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise you, but these people are flat out liars. And they are liars that are being endlessly cheered on by the people who supposedly get paid an awful lot of money to talk about politics and to call out the BS. Well, sadly, while they won't do their job, I will. I'll do it for you each and every night, and make sure you join us on Sunday night as well, because we get on right on this from Sunday night at 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock in Queensland.